So I promise y'all that I would add some content on my writing and art channel. So on this channel, I primarily do tutorials where I may teach something related to literary, or I may show some sort of art I've done or read some of my literary work. So this article right here, I found it is 7 tips from Ernest Hemingway. And you can find this article for free on Scribe, SCRIBD. You can download it for free as a PDF. I was really surprised to see that Hemingway gave some writing tips, because Hemingway said that the worst thing you can ever ask a writer to do is to talk. So Hemingway didn't talk often. Hemingway would actually avoid talking about writing. He would talk about things that might be dealing with the war or something, but he really didn't talk about writing too much. So I wonder how they got him to give these 7 tips. I'm wondering if he may have just been talking to another writer, and they just wrote the stuff down and passed it down. So let's see here. So first I'm going to let you see where I got it from. So here's where I got the article, the PDF here from Scribe, as you see here. And you can download it. Now, I already downloaded it. I didn't look at it yet, but we are going to discuss it. So here is it downloaded. So it's the 7 tips. Okay, so here's Hemingway right here. So he was a hunter. And I think that was pretty smart, because he kept training himself to be patient, to concentrate, to listen and observe, which are very good habits, skills, and qualities that a writer must have in order to finish a body of work, or to even not give up and quit. So hunting was a really good choice of an activity that he did when he wasn't writing. I know that other writers were famous writers would do art. They would sketch, or they would play an instrument that required them to sort of concentrate and use technique and decision making. So they would allow them to make decision making skills and actually tune into their frequency very, very well in order to make smart artistic decisions. So I think that Hemingway choosing to be a big game hunter, that's kind of so different, because a lot of writers and artists, they choose another art to do when they're not doing their main art. But being a hunter can actually be something you can really do that will still help you artistically in a very spiritual, energetic, and mental way. So I guess it would give mental strength, build up patience and tolerance. And also you to be able to learn how to go at it as long as you need to until you get it done. So I think that was a good choice for him to do big game hunting. Now, not everybody's into big game hunting, because some people are vegetarians and they don't eat meat. So perhaps you can do gardening. If you're a vegetarian or something, perhaps you can be someone that chop the wood or gather the wood for a fire. Maybe you could be into sculpting or something, and do that on the side when you're not writing. So I think that was smart. I just had to talk about that real quick here. They do have a Hemingway app online that you can use to check your work, and it is free. I use it all the time. It says Hemingway never wrote a treatise on the art of writing fiction. He did, however, leave behind a great many passages and letters and articles and books. Oh, so they had to go through his letters and articles and some books out there where he was willing to give his opinion. So little interviews, little things he may have been willing to say, have showed up in letters and in books. So maybe he wrote somebody a letter. Maybe it was Gertrude Stein or Picasso or somebody, and he was talking about writing in the letter. I think that's kind of sneaky for people to like take that out of the letters. I guess people are thirsty to know what he knows. Okay, so let's see what quotes he has here. These are 7 tips. I said quotes, I meant tips, y'all. Notice how I'm highlighting. So if you don't know how to highlight using the WPS software, which is free, there is a free version of it. You can download the WPS software online. What I like about this software that I'm using to read my PDFs and my Office documents is that you can save your documents in with file document types that publishers accept. So this is a very good software to have. So if you don't know how to highlight, you can just left click on the stanza. Like at the beginning of the stanza, click this right here and then click the color of the highlight that you want. I personally like to keep the highlight a certain color according to the type of stuff I'm studying. So for all my writing study materials, I use a yellow highlighter. It's yellow. That way I know when I open it for sure that this is definitely literary or writing related because it's highlighted yellow. I think that I should highlight the title here. So let's highlight the title here if I can. Looks to be jumping around. Okay. Well, it's not really letting me because it's clickable. But I think I can still highlight it using the highlighter up here. But let's keep this moving on here. Let's see what he had to say. His tips. It took me all the way at the bottom of the document. So his first tip, he says, to get started, write one true sentence. Now, we know that he's famous for this tip. But we know that writers have the right to lie. So it doesn't have to be true, but it has to be true, I guess, to what you have experienced in your mind or in your memory or outside of you or in imagination, in make-believe. So just be true. So he says, sometimes when I was starting a new story and I could not get it going, I would sit in front of the fire and squeeze the peel of the little oranges into the edge of the flame and watch the sputter of blue they made. And I would stand and look out over the roofs of Paris and think. That's funny that he say Paris because he wasn't even living in Paris at first. Hemingway was actually poor for a while before owning that nice place in Paris. So I think it's funny that he doesn't want to talk about his humble beginnings when he wrote his first Nobel Prize winning novel. He was actually very poor. He was not living in the fancy part of Paris. He did not even own a place in Paris that was really nice. But yet he talks as if that was the starting point of his great writing when it wasn't. It actually started when he was living very poor. I don't even think he was living in the part of Paris that he's trying to reference to, like where you can tour his place. He had his Paris home you can tour. So I guess he doesn't want to talk about his humble beginnings. But he should, because he wrote his first great book, world famous book, when he was in a very humble place in his life. I know Oprah doesn't mind talking about it, her very humble beginning, but I see Hemingway don't want to, yet he wrote one of his great works at that time. I don't know why, but we know that Hemingway did have a big ego, so maybe he was sensitive about that. So he says, do not worry. You have always written before. You will write now. All you have to do is write one true sentence. Write the truest sentence that you know. So finally, I would write one true sentence and then go on from there. It was easy then because there was always one true sentence that I knew or had seen or had heard someone say. If I started to write elaborately or like someone introducing or presenting something, I found I could cut that out. I think that's what he's saying. So basically he is saying he could cut out whatever wasn't true. Cut that scroll work or ornament out. So I guess that's why he didn't like talking, because he was looking for the true sentence. Something that was believable, even if it was written on paper. People would believe it's true. So yeah, the thing is, he doesn't get so deep into explaining the true sentence. And that's where I have a problem with Hemingway's writing tips. It's almost like he wanted people to know, but he didn't want people to know what he knew. Interesting. I guess he was trying to be even a mysterious writer, even with his teaching, the way he taught. I think that's too, I guess, jaded. This tip is too jaded. So I guess you would have to go looking over his work and look at his opening lines of his work to see what he mean by true. But as a writer myself, I find that keeping it true is just telling it as it is. That's how my writing teacher, poetry teacher explained it to me, just telling it as it is. You can always revise it and edit it, and so that the line is slant, but just tell it as it is, because when you tell it as it is, it's definitely true. It might be so literal, but at least it's true. Go ask Charles Bukowski. He knows that best. Okay. If Charles Bukowski was alive, he'd say, I agree with that one. Okay, so number 2 tip on the list, always stop for the day while you still know what will happen next. Now, I believe in this tip also when editing. Like, never try to edit all your work on one day unless you have to submit your work that same day. Okay, then you have to edit the whole work. But I always want to have something to return to work on, because I don't know how much new content I'll put out that day. But if I already have some content to work on, then I still have some work to do. So I agree with what he is saying here. I agree. As long as you have the outline, I think you can stop. I personally don't like to stop unless I at least have some of the outline done. That way, when I go to it, I have the outline, and all I got to do is come up with the content to fit into the next part of the outline. I have the next part of the outline already waiting for me. I am a pantser, so I like to go from without an outline to outline, without an outline to outline. That's the kind of pantser I am. Some people like to start with an outline and get away from an outline and go back to the outline. I sort of rotate cycles of that. Depends on what I'm working on. But I always like to stop if I have at least some of the outline left to do. So that's just me. I don't know if Hemingway did it that way. I don't think he did. He says there's a difference between stopping and foundering. To make steady progress, having a daily word count quota was far less important to Hemingway than making sure he never emptied the well of his imagination. In an October article in 1935, he gave this advice. The best way is to always stop when you are going good and when you know what will happen next. If you do that every day when you are writing a novel, you will never be stuck. That is the most valuable thing I can tell you. So try to remember it. So here where he says, when you know what will happen next, he says to stop here. Now, if you know what will happen next, you must have a little bit of a sketch of the plot of your novel, or you have an outline done already. I think this tip can apply to every type of creative writing, even poetry, especially narrative poetry and essays, like creative essays, like that has sensory in it and about a place or something. The next tip is never think about the story when you're not working. Now, I agree with that because I find that you start to doubt the quality of what you already written, or you start to try to be so in control of it. You're not letting your brain do the secret work on it. So I definitely agree with that. So like, I think that we forget that our brain is working on the work even when we're not thinking and talking about it. So if we start thinking about it on purpose and our brain is working on it in our subconsciousness, then we're overthinking. We're putting pressure on the brain, and the brain may go into introspection and curl up, and then it won't crank out anything for us. So yeah, I agree with Hemingway. So he has a lot here. I'm not gonna say everything under each tip because I don't want to ruin the article for you. I want you to go and read it yourself as well. I like this where he says, "Let it refill at night from the springs that fed it." I like that one. When it's time to work again, always start by reading what you've written so far. I always do that. So I like to start what I've written and edit what I've written, and then kind of meditate and wait patiently for the next part to come. So I agree with that. I'm currently doing that right now with a book I'm writing, a book that's not even like creative writing. It's a book that's teaching something. I'm taking the same approach. So don't describe an emotion, make it. Okay, that one's kind of tricky. So we're going to look at what he's saying about that one. That's number 5. Don't describe an emotion, make it. So I guess he's saying, like, be sure that your line is not faking the emotion. Like, it's definitely going to make someone feel the way you were trying to make them feel. So he says, listen to the external events. So, and listen to the way the experience made you feel. So basically, if the experience made you feel like you were old and used and wasted, then you have to write your line to celebrate that. You can't just say, oh, that's what I saw. But if what you saw made you feel like something that made you feel a certain emotion, then that's how you write the line. to match the emotion. I think the truth of the emotion is what you're trying to get through the line. So you don't just use any color brown in the line. You have to know what kind of emotion you have, so you know what color brown you need to use in the line, and what imagery that will match that color and will match the way you truly feel. Okay? Your emotion. It's getting deep. I'm trying to explain it to some new writers that may be watching this. Yeah. Whenever I'm writing on a certain theme, and I know like this part of my poem is like focused on this topic, and I want my readers to feel this from this topic, I make sure that my imagery matches. Okay? That my imagery in my line actually matches. I mean, that's just me. Like, so when I wrote my poem about my dad and him dying and then being haunted by his ghost, and me being so sad, watery eyes, and not being able to focus because of the grief, I wrote a stanza in which I said I saw everyone as ghost. I couldn't see the world. Everybody was blurry. I couldn't focus on anyone because I was so focused on the grief that everybody I saw was a ghost. And that's a popular stanza in my poem that was published. It's called Years After I Have Buried You. It says, blurred as the ghost I saw at your grave, or something like that. When I think about when I was at my father's grave and I did look around, and even when I think of the moment afterwards, years later, I can't identify anyone's face because it was raining, I was crying, I was really depressed, and my mind and my eyes weren't focused. I was out of it. It was like the experience drugged me. The whole grief itself was like a drug, and it left my eyes so intoxicated, my mind so intoxicated that I couldn't identify anybody. I was basically like as if I was drunk at his grave, but I wasn't. But that's how it made me feel. So that's the imagery that I chose. And it was haunting me. So I felt like his death and the whole experience was haunting me. So I made sure I used imagery to explain the feeling of being haunted, of what would you see if you were haunted. And that's what I added. Added to the poem. So here's the next one. It says, use a pencil. Now this ain't for everybody. I'm recently finding that using a pencil to write your first draft is very freeing. When I sit down and write on a laptop, I feel like I'm in writing military school. Like, you better get it right on the first draft. I don't like that feeling that the office software give me. I feel like I'm a secretary with a boss breathing down my neck, and I must type correctly. Sometimes when it makes me really feel that way, I turn to my pencil. So I do agree with him here. But sometimes writing with a pencil can be very slow, and you may lose your ideas, and you may lose content that's coming to you. Some people's minds process stuff so fast, and stuff comes so fast. And then you're writing so fast, and then when you go back and read your writing, you can't read it. That's the only drawback with writing with a pencil when you're super inspired. Your hands can't write as fast as the words want to come out on the paper. So that's my only problem with writing with a pencil. But at the same time, I guess the pencil disciplines you to take your time and write clear, or you may not remember your line. You may not know what line it is on the paper. I guess the pencil trains you to trust that you can remember what's coming to you, what's coming to your mind. You're not going to forget it. But if you have anxiety sometime and where you think that you're going to forget what's coming to your mind because you're writing so slow with a pencil because you have to read your stuff. If you think you're going to forget your stuff and you have anxiety, then you can be someone who just type everything up. Like Charles Bukowski typed almost everything up. And I think so do Stephen King. So it's just up to you. If you don't want to risk not being able to read your handwriting and not remembering what you was just about to write, then you don't want to risk that. You're better off using a typewriter or typing keys or a computer, okay? Or a recorder. I find that using a recorder when you're out and about is easier than pulling out a notebook and writing. So it's all up to you. Okay? It's up to you. So when you write, you get all the kick and the reader gets none. Okay. I noticed that he's always talking in articles. I know that writing articles is a great way to really learn how to pace yourself. Because when you write articles, you're like, oh, you're writing in paragraph forms. You know, you have to make sure that paragraph's really good before you go to the next. So I find that practicing journalism and article writing can improve your writing. And I guess in the old days, they used the pencil and paper. They wasn't carrying around a typewriter in their hands everywhere they went. So of course Hemingway was running around with a notepad on him, a bag with pencil and paper in there. Okay, so he says here, be brief. Be brief. Let's see what he means. Hemingway was contemptuous of writers who, as he put it, never learned how to say no to a typewriter. he feels like whenever someone runs to a typewriter, he looks at it like it's like you're just being lazy or something. I just get that, like that's what he might think. So he says keep it short, and I agree with him. Some of my work is very short and tightly written, where it looks like it can fit on, like, you know, your time card when you check out of work. You know that little time sheet they give you to clock out of work or clock into work? It's like a time card. I find that when my poems can fit on that and not be close to the edge of the paper, it seems like the readers feel comfortable with reading the poem, and the publisher seems to like that type of work. I guess like if you could shrink your document when you're typing so that you definitely write short. So you can force yourself to write short, like you see this, short and tight. See how that look? If you shrink your document, make it narrow, you'll be forcing yourself to write tight. Unless you want to write long so much that you just keep on hitting the enter key and enter key. All right. Hemingway has a line in his one book. He says about the fish, he don't care who win. It's a very tight stanza. And I think he says that to help writers to have more appreciation of symbolism and the depth of a sentence that only has 3 words in it, like a noun, a verb, and maybe another noun. Okay. So your sentence had 4 words. What if you just wrote sentences with no more than 4 to 6 words in them? And that was your sentence. It would be kind of challenging because, you know, you'd want to squeeze in a verb and then maybe one adjective, but still you want to have enough nouns so that you have some imagery. You know, your imagery is actually there because you have a noun and a verb. So that could be challenging. So I guess one way you can practice what Hemingway's saying is practice having a certain word count limit per sentence. And make sure the sentence would be small if you use that amount of words. Okay, if you enjoyed this little tutorial, feel free to let me know. You can download this on Scribe online. I didn't read everything in under the tips he gave, but I did go over all 7 because you may want to get the PDF yourself and study it. So on the weekends, every weekend I'll be pulling up a PDF or article, something to do with writing, and I'll be discussing it, teaching it, or going over it, and just discussing what I've learned from it and how I use some of the tips, but also studying some stuff and letting you study with me. Thanks for watching. If you appreciate this article, if you liked it, what I was going over, feel free to put a donation on the channel by sending it to my Cash App at # Coach V Hunter. Thanks for watching. Bye.